Hi, everybody. Alan Arnette here with another podcast and a blog on alanarnette.com. It is Sunday, April the 13th, 2 days before tax day here in the US. So I got to hurry up, get those done. And this is another episode on Everest 2025 with the weekend update. Well, okay, it's starting to really heat up now in the Khumbu. Teams are flying into Kathmandu. The ones back home going on the Tibetan side, they're finishing up their packing and shipping gear over to get ready to start the season. And there's already a lot of teams up in Everest Base Camp on the Nepal side. And the Icefall Doctors got the route in through the Icefall finally. So we'll talk about all of this here over the next few minutes. So it is really busy. This is when most of the teams begin to arrive right around tax day in the U.S., April 15th. After trekking in from Lukla all the way to base camp, a lot of teams this year have been acclimatizing on Lobuche East, and also Island Peak. That'll eliminate at least one rotation through the Khumbu Icefall, which everybody knows is a place that you don't want to linger and you want to avoid going through as much as possible. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second also. But they've got the Sherpas have got the base camp all set up now. They've got the big old cooking tents, the dining tents, the individual sleeping tents, and at some teams they've got individual dome tents with beds off the floor for their high-end clients, their VIP clients, and their other luxury clients. I don't know. I'm not sure where this is going to end. There's been a lot of chatter throughout the between last year and this year. After last year, some teams had massage tables, and everybody has cappuccino, espresso machines, and a wine bar and everything else. But there's a lot of talk, especially from the Nepal government. They want to try to stop that kind of stuff and get back to basics. But I don't know. I think that genie's out of the bottle. So I think we're going to continue to see that happening and probably even grow even more. I remember a few years ago, I think it was Seven Summits Club out of Russia. They actually had either a pool table, and another team had a portable sauna that they brought in. Of course, you can drive to the base camp on the north side with a truck, so you can bring in all sorts of silly stuff. On the Nepal side, you've got to either fly it in with a helicopter, which that is also becoming more controversial. Too many helicopter flights flying across the Khumbu. This year, their helicopter flights were on again and off again, primarily around sightseeing and tourism, not in the capacity of moving gear up to base camp. And then also this year, they were supposed to be using drones to carry some of the gear up to Camp 2 to fix the ropes to the summits. Haven't heard much about the drones yet. Also, the Icefall Doctors were supposedly going to be using drones to find the routes, but hadn't heard anything about that either. So I'm not really sure the drones is taking off as fast as it has, or maybe it's just quiet and there's, just taking care of business and doing it on their own. So another thing this year is the Indian Army is back. Indian Army is always a great addition to climbing Mount Everest. They just do a great job. And after the 2015 earthquake, they actually stayed behind after everybody else had left to help clean up all the rubbish that had been created by the flying projectiles from the earthquake, the avalanche off of Lindgren. So I'm really happy to see the Indian Army back. I like those guys. Um, Let's see, a few Sherpas are already up to Camp 2, stocking up the camps up there. So I'll talk about that in just a second. But in a bit of sad news, Lalama Sherpa, age 55, he reportedly died of altitude sickness at base camp. So that's our first official death this year. I don't think he was a climber. Don't really know what his role was or even what team he was on. But it was reported in the media that he had passed away, and they cited altitude sickness. So my condolences to his family and friends and teammates. So the big news last week was that the Icefall Doctors finally got the ropes all the way through the Icefall and into the Western Cwm. That'll probably be up to Camp 2 pretty soon if it's not already. As I said, there's already a few commercial teams that have sent Sherpas up to Camp 2 to begin building the tent platforms and carrying all that gear up there. Really Camp 2 on the Nepal side is also known as Advanced Base Camp. So similar to Advanced Base Camp on the Tibetan side, where you have, you got base camp and interim camp and then advanced camp before you go up to the North Col on that side. And on the south side, you've got, of course, base camp, and then you've got Khumbu Icefall Camp 1 at the base of at the bottom of the Western Khum, Camp 2 at the base of the Lhotse face, and then on and on. So right now, the goal is to get Camp 1 and Camp 2 set up. Camp 1 will just be a temporary camp. Typically, teams will use it for their first rotation. They'll go up, they'll spend 2 nights typically at Camp 1, with the second day being an active rest day where they'll walk a little bit up the ice, up the Western Coombe, and then come back, spend the night, and then the next day they'll make a move to Camp 2. So that's what we're going to see happening here over the next couple of weeks. We'll talk about the future in a second. But before, the Icefall Doctors, they had a tough time getting the route in this year. So I started looking at it, wondering if it was any later than normal. So I went back and did some research. I went back to 2009, and so typically the Icefall has gone. They've got the route through the Icefall done between April 2nd and April 16th. So this year they got it in on April 10th. So smack dab in the middle of that window. So it wasn't too late. It wasn't too early. It's kind of a Goldilocks timing. The question I have is how many ladders did they end up putting in? Last year there was less than 5. This year probably going to be about that same number. The icefall is thinning. It's not getting shorter, but it's thinning. And as it gets thin, that causes those crevasses to close in. So and some people are believing that icefall is getting safer, not more dangerous. So I don't know. We'll have to see how it works out. Last year it was kind of all over the map. I heard reports of people taking 14 hours to going through the icefall. This was last year. And I had other people say they did it in 5. Obviously it's individually dependent upon how your fitness is, how well you're acclimatized, all that stuff. But we'll see what the times are this year. And the real key for me be watching the Sherpas to see how fast they go through the icefall, because those are the guys that go through the icefall many, many more times than the clients will. And they want to get up and out of that thing as quickly as possible. Let me talk a little bit about the danger of the icefall. It's a popular belief that the icefall is the most dangerous part of climbing Everest. And to be sure, people have died. There's been 43 deaths in the icefall of the 225 deaths on the Nepal side, just the Nepal side. So 43 out of 225. Of those 43, however, virtually all of them were Sherpas carrying gear up. 21 were died from avalanches, including 16 in 2014 when that serac let loose on the west shoulder of Everest. 17 from an icefall collapse, and that's another issue. 2 years ago, we saw 3 Sherpas from Imagine Nepal die in the upper icefall when basically a dome collapsed, taking them to their deaths. 3 died falling in a crevasse, 1 of illness and 1 of altitude mountain sickness. It's a dangerous place, but more people die on other parts of Everest than in the icefall. That doesn't mean that it's not a deadly place and people should go through it, go through it absolutely as fast as possible. So also last week, we had a lot of activity on Annapurna. Tragically, 2 Sherpas, Ningmatashi and Rima Rinji, lost their lives right above, I think, Camp 2 from an avalanche. That area is really known to be heavily prone to avalanches. And that's the part that a lot of climbers were very fearful of, and they wanted to get through that as quickly as possible. It's a well-known area on Annapurna. Annapurna sees more people die from avalanches than any other cause of death. So my condolences go out to Ningma and Rima's family, friends, and teammates as well. Their bodies were recovered. They were wearing those Rico reflectors. They worked for Seven Summits Treks, and Seven Summits Treks provided those Rico reflectors to every member and Sherpa on their team. So, in this case, it proved to be useful in body recovery. There, when the earthquake happened, I'm sorry, when the avalanche happened, they called helicopters almost immediately, but it happened, the helicopters didn't get there till late in the day. And also, the helicopters began to ferry clients off from Camp 3 and basically rescuing them, taking them back down to base camp. And I don't know if that interfered with the search for them or not. Chances are excellent that the avalanche hit and there was no, they had no chance because the video I saw of that avalanche from John Black from South Africa was just astounding. Also, Dawa, Chung Dawa of Seven Summits Trek, it was just astounding just how much power was in that thing when it let loose. So those poor guys probably never knew what hit them, but their bodies are recovered, so they will now be laid to rest in a traditional manner. Also, around Makalu, there were summits. The Seven Summits Treks, they put up a rope team. They got everybody up there. There's 40 people climbing Makalu this year. Oh, back to Annapurna, Seven Summits Treks, they put about 12 people on the summit of Annapurna. Imagine Nepal had about three 8K expeditions, had 13, and Pioneer had 8 people on the summit. So, pretty good success on Annapurna this year, but tragically, that success comes with the deaths. In terms of permits going, Nepal is actually ahead of schedule this year in issuing permits. Everest has 134 individual foreigner permits spread across 14 teams. Again, I expect that to be over 500 individuals that'll get permitted this year. There's 27 females out of that 134, which is pretty cool. Let's see, Lhotse has 30 people that are signed up for it. Manaslu doesn't have any. Choyu, Dalagiri, not yet. Kanchenjunga has 35 people that are registered. So right now it's about 730 people for all of Nepal's mountains that have been permitted thus far. So it's going to be a big season. It's going to be a big season. There's lots of people on Himlung and Amanabalam and Island Peak and all over the whole place. So looking forward next week. People are coming in, they're trekking in, they're going to arrive at base camp, they're going to get settled in, they're going to spend a couple of days just resting up from the trek. Some people will come in late because they pre-acclimatized at home using altitude tents. They'll probably fly into somewhere like Parachet and then walk maybe one day to get up to base camp. They should be acclimatized around between 17 and 23,000 feet, and that'll obviously help to reduce the number of rotations that they have to go through. But base camp is going to be busy. It's going to be crazy. I was looking at the weather, and it looks like base camp is pretty mild. Highs in the high teens. The summit, the lows and highs are in well below zero, like 30, 40 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. So, let's hope that the mountain warms up a little bit before they start getting climbers going up to the top. And next week, I'll talk a little bit about, when can we expect the summit date? You've heard me say this before, that 80% of the summits happen between May 18th and May 22nd. But we see people that'll start summiting the day that the rope fixers get the ropes to the top. And that's another thing I'll look into is what are the typical dates of when the ropes hit the top? Typically, it's in early May, but sometimes it's really late. Like I think last year or year before, it was the middle of May. It had everybody nervous. So once the ropes got in, everybody just ran up to the top, to try to get it done before, the too many masses came in. And we'll see how it all plays out this year. So very, very early in the season, a lot of just preparation going on right now, finalizing all the logistics, beginning to think about positioning oxygen and establishing those high camps at Camp 1 and 2, and then they'll think about establishing Camp 3 on the Lhotse face, and eventually getting again oxygen primarily in the tents up to Camp 4 to the South Col. Similar type of a process on the Tibetan side. People will start arriving there probably in maybe a week, 10 days. It's always later on that side because you can just drive in, not trek in. So it's going to be a fun season. Let me add a couple more things here about what else is going on in the climbing world, not necessarily around Everest, but there's a new rescue service in Peru by Eric Raul Albino Luina. I'm sure I butchered his name. I'm so sorry, Eric. But I've got this on the blog. But they've created an organization called the Peruvian High Mountain Rescue Team, and they do search and rescue and evacuations off the high mountains for climbers that get in trouble. I've got all these telephone numbers on the website on the blog. So take a look at that. If you ever go to Peru or even Bolivia, I would have these numbers on my speed dial in case you need it. They work with the evacuation companies like Global Rescue and Magnus. Really, really good service that they offer. So I'm just happy to see that in that part of the world. Hey, another thing is many of you are familiar with Adrian Bollinger and Sam Keisher. their podcast called The Duffel Shuffle. The Duffel Shuffle. I was a guest on that 2 weeks ago and just had a fantastic time. It was a lot of fun talking with them. We went on and on and on. It's about an hour and a half long. We just covered topics from, how Adrian and I first met to how the climbing industry has changed. They were kind enough to ask me a lot of questions about my past and how I got into climbing, how I chose the mountains that I climbed, my experiences on Everest and K2 and others. So if you're interested in that, give it a listen. They just did another podcast. They've been doing it now for about a year, and they just did episode number 26 with Garrett Madison of Madison Mountaineering, who, by the way, I'm going to be interviewing from Everest Base Camp this year. So we'll be able to hear directly from him how things are going. I'm going to try to also do a podcast with Adrian from the north side. I've never done it with somebody on the north side, so that'll be fun to do. Another thing that's kind of crazy is that Nepal's Minister of Communications and Information Technology has declared that he's going to shut down all social media by, what is it, mid-April, unless they register with the government. In other words, unless they pay money to the government. He says that this is done all around Nepal and India and other places, that they have to pay a registration fee. So there's a chance that Facebook and Twitter or X or whatever it is going to go down. And so if that's the case, I hope you have a Garmin InReach or some alternative way of staying in touch with your loved ones back home. Because I know a lot of people use Facebook in order to provide updates and use Facebook Messenger to communicate to people. So you might just want to be aware of that and have a backup plan just in case. Finally, I want to give a plug for the Himalayan database. I use them all the time for all my statistics. Just fantastic work by Billy and that group. But they don't know if you're there unless you register and you tell them. They do work with the Nepal government to get the statistics at the end of the season, but they go through, they refine it, and they add a level of integrity to those numbers that wouldn't exist otherwise. So you go to their website and go ahead and sign up. I've got a link to that on my site as well. All right, climb on. This is Alan, and remember, memories are everything.